What's up, guys? This is Stevan and I'm here with a really exciting video today. Today, I'm making a tier list of the best wrestling shoes ever, alright? This is a top one. Everyone's always in discussion about it, and we're going to get into it today. But make sure, first, you subscribe, like the video, and turn the notification bells on. I want to know what your guys' favorite shoes are, so let's go. We're going to start out, and basically the way we got the tier list set up. So, we got God tier is the highest, alright? This is the tier list where no mortal man should be wearing these shoes anymore. And if you are, you're literally a legend. You're a goat for wearing these shoes and having these shoes. They got to be worth $500 to $1,000, or these things are just ultimate tier for a certain reason, and they've are a reason to change wrestling. Iconic, another great one, a little bit more common to see, also top tier, close to God tier, but just a notch under. Fire, that just means these are sick shoes and just they fit. Maybe they're different colorways of the shoe that I have earlier that just maybe aren't as cool, but still fire to have, maybe a little bit more common. Solid, these are maybe more functionality faced versus like just kind of more well-rounded as solid. Mid, these are just more of like lower level tier shoes. Trash, this is just straight up garbage, belongs in the bin. And what are those? Just straight ugly. These things are blinding to look at, or they do draw attention, but for bad reasons. So let's get into it, guys. We're going to start it out here with the one, the only, the Nike Inflict. So for me, Nike makes very good wrestling shoes. I would say Nike always are producing like an 8 out of 10 because the one thing that's really great about the Freak in particular, you can just put them on your foot and they're broken in pretty much. You can wear them and compete in them, and if they blow out, so what? They're pretty cheap to get. The new Freaks, I would probably go with put them right in solid. The original Freaks, I'm not sure if they're on this list or not, but these original Freaks that were out, there was a white and black pair that were like, those things were pretty iconic because the Freaks used to be hard to come by, and to have a pair of Nike wrestling shoes back when I was in high school, back the early 2000s were when they really made them, and then they stopped for a long time pretty much until when colleges started getting sponsored by Nike and getting, pushing the pendulum there. I'll put the Freaks in the solid category. Oh boy, we got the Sergey Beloglazov shoes, baby. These things are rough, man. I actually had these just because Sergey was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. He's a legend. He's a 6-time world champion, 2-time Olympic champion from the Soviet Union. From Russia current day, and he's a legend of the sport. But he definitely made these shoes and made a quick bag with this brand called Double Sport, because I bought these things. They were super cheap and they were straight up garbage, man. I don't know, I'm putting this in the trash category. It could be in the what are those though, just because of the strap across, and they literally blew out. But like, I wore them, and because it's Sergey, I can't put them in what are those, but these are trash straight up. These shoes, or some of the coolest, these John Smith, what are these, the Addy Strikes? Okay, there were 3 different colors. There were red and black, there were like yellow and silver, and then they had this maroon and silver. I had the maroon and silver. These shoes were super comfy, overall good. I would give this a fire rating. The John Smiths, they were John Smith's signature. They had a little spider on the bottom of the shoe too that was like, they were like gel. These things were fire. Like, these were awesome. They were comfortable, and they got the job done. Another one, Adidas shoe. We got the Adidas Response. These things, I never had these, but these things were awesome. They were a little bit like of the lower end for Adidas, but they were hot. Like, everybody wanted the Responses. Like this was like the kitty killer shoe. Like, you had these as a kid, you were probably like a state champ, or you were battling every weekend wearing the Adidas Responses as a kid. These things were awesome. I don't know how the resale market is of these now, but they made a bunch of cool different colors, like a black with like a lime green and everything like that. They were just like, they were kind of the lower end, so maybe I'll put them at like the higher for solid, but maybe I just think like early, like the 2000s era, Adidas is just like hard to put lower than fire, because I personally thought Adidas like did it in like the early 2000s, and then I think they really just kind of went decline, but they were awesome in the 2000s. So I'll give the Responses a fire. All right, so we got Combat Speeds. So these are the Combat Speeds. These are like the newer Combat Speeds for Adidas, and this is really when I think Adidas started selling out. They started making a really cheaper product, and just the material was less. It felt more synthetic. They were cheap. They were stinky. But the Combat Speeds, nonetheless, are still a good shoe. They're overall, I would probably say a 7 out of 10, the new ones. We'll get to when we get to the real Combat Speeds later. But the new Combat Speeds, they just kind of make a bunch of colors. They're easy on the market. You go to Dick's Sporting Goods and pick them up. They're nothing special. Kind of an entry-level shoe for the most part, but a high-level wrestler like myself could technically wear Combat Speeds. So I'd give them about a 7 out of 10. I'd probably put them in the solid. I'd probably put them in the mid-tier. Solid to mid-tier, probably mid. All right, Jordans, dude. The Jordan wrestling shoe. These things were crazy. So, like, one of my teammates from high school, Tyler Scott, he had a pair of these things, and these things were special. Now, maybe if you look at them, they look a little bit, nothing special to them, but, like, how rare these were. If you had, like, to get a pair of them, these were from the 90s, and so you just couldn't go into the store and buy them. You had to buy these resell. They weren't, like, the best, like, held-up shoe, but, like, these things were just rare. You pulled these things out and only competed in tournaments. Like, you had to wear these if you were good, and you wanted to flex at a tournament. The Jordan wrestling shoe, bro. These things were iconic. I gotta put these in iconic level because, bro, insane. All right, guys, we're going into some more stuff. We got our first ASICs. We got the EXEO. We got the EXEO original colorway, black and gold. But I'm gonna just include a few different colorways with this because we're gonna be here all day if not. The EXEO is basically like ASIC's premier shoe right now, and it's based off the Onitsuka Tigers back in the day. This shoe is really what set the tone for international wrestling, and like this is what all the best wrestlers in the world were wearing these things. I wore these myself when I won my gold medal. I became a world champion in these, and pretty much every other world champion was wearing EXEOs. These are the first original ones with the flatter bottoms, and I'm gonna probably put these in iconic because you had to pretty much change the colors of these things. Like you could go online and order like off of eBay because they had them in all different colors. They had like the Nike ID thing going on with ASICs, but the crazy thing was how rare they are to get because because they're only in Japan, and then ordering that was a hassle, and doing it was like on 6-month back order. So these things, kids are paying $200 to $300 for these EXEOs, and they were super hard to come by, especially 10 years ago. People really were they were starting to filter new colors in. So these are definitely in the iconic tier, and I personally think they're better than the Jordans. Maybe Jordans might be more iconic because of the rarity. But I'll put them behind there. EXEO, the OGs or EXOs or whatever they're called. These are iconic for sure. All right, now these are the Dan Gable, the newest models of the EXEOs, but they're the American versions, and these are the Dan Gables. They have like a little ankle thing, and they have a couple new colors. I'm gonna put these in fire because like America always finds a way to like reproduce what Japan does and just call it something else. So, and then Dan Gable, the signatures have just been around for a while. But Dan Gable's getting kind of old now, and I think they kind of need to move on with the whole Dan Gable label at this point. But hey, I guess they're still selling. And the Dan Gable line usually kind of where it's a little bit more expensive, and that's what they kind of did with the new EXEO, since those are like the high performance competition shoe. That's like the Dan Gables are like the equivalent to that. So I'll put these in fire, not from this colorway, but just in general. They're pretty fire shoes. I'll probably put them somewhere like around here. This is a woman's ASICs. I forget what the name of these are, but these are the new girls shoe. I actually was training in these. I was wrestling in these a lot last year. Extremely comfortable. They're kind of like the lower end shoe for ASICs. And ASICs, I think, in my opinion, out of the big three in wrestling shoes, ASICs makes the highest quality product for wrestling shoes. These are kind of like the American model. I kind of like this color with the white and like the blue with the translucent. And it's cheap, so I'll definitely put it in the solid category because you know what, it's cool. They look great. They're not anything like spectacular, but they get the job done. They're super comfortable and light. I mean, I could put them in the fire tier, to be honest with you. Maybe I will, but right now I think I'm just gonna leave it in solid. We got the ONEV shoes. This is going God tier, and you know what? Coming in January. All right, we got now we got. These are like the ASICS Matte Flexes, I believe. These are an entry-level shoe. There's either two things happening if you see somebody in these Matte Flexes, all right? One of two things. Either this guy's a scrub and he just started wrestling, or he's really good and he's like just decides like I don't care anymore, or I'm from Russia and I'm just gonna wear these things because I don't have the money. And then too, if they don't have like the socks, like the regular socks, if they have ankle socks with these, watch out because those guys are good as hell. So honestly, in my opinion, I'm gonna probably put this in the mid tier though because they're just such a basic shoe and you can just get them anywhere. But they're good quality because, like I said, ASICs, even the ASICs in the mid and the solid category are still really good quality shoes, and you could wear them. Like this is just for like look and preference and nostalgia for purposes of what I'm ranking this at. Next, these are just the original leather Onitsukas, and I think these are iconic just because of the leather. And not many shoes are leather, and I think they like really set and pave the way, and they're great shoes. It's just hard to find a pair of these now and be able to wear them. Anything leather that came from like the 80s is just gonna be dried or stiffened out by now. But these shoes are amazing and they're super comfortable and they're awesome. All right, we got a pair of Brute shoes. Oh boy. Brute used to be pretty cool back in the 80s. They got John Smith and they kind of became this wrestling brand, but like John Smith was one of their sponsors. It was kind of like what Michael Jordan did with Nike. Brute tried to do that within the wrestling space, but then they just went downhill and like Brute's like non-existent now. I think they do like high school sport. It's bad, and the shoes, like the most recent shoe, like pretty much put them off the market. This thing is straight trash. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe what are those? But these are the basic ones. This is just trash. All right, we got the JBs, the Asics. So this is before he went to Brutus, and like I said, I didn't include the Brutus shoes. But honestly, I wasn't ever a fan of when the Asics had the little swoosh too. I think these are pretty comfortable shoes. I'm not a big fan when they just kind of go with the Asics A or like the swirl or whatever. I kind of liked it when it had like the hashtag or check mark on the side. These things looked a little bit more. So I'll probably put these in like the mid category, like above the rest, because they weren't also that expensive either. And honestly, I don't think they were my favorite. Honestly, I like the gold colorway of these better just than the white. I'll probably put these in solid, to be honest, at the end of solid. Okay, these are Omniflexes from Asics. Honestly, they tried to make these things like hyper special, but honestly, I just thought they were ugly. They look like a bunch of scales on your feet. Maybe some people might put this in fire. I think that these are trash, in my opinion, for Asics. Or, I don't know, this is probably my least favorite Asics shoe because they just tried a little bit too much. They tried to get techie, and it just didn't work out for them. So for me, they're probably in the highest for trash. All right, the foot sweeps, Nike foot sweeps. These things are sick. All right, Nike foot sweeps. They're the high ankle. These are the black colorway. The grip was dual sole grip. I'm putting this thing in iconic, man. These things set the tone. I mean, for me, I loved when Nike did some cool pairs back in the late 90s. These things are classics, man. These are grails for sure. So I'm going to put these probably in front of the Jordans for me. Just the black with the little blue on it. We're talking more iconic, baby. We got 2 back-to-back college release shoes, all right? So Nike did this thing where they teamed up with a lot of the schools that were partnered with them, that they were sponsored by, and they made shoes. They made I think these are the 2K4s. These are Illinois and then also Purdue's. These are just super rare, and these are just iconic shoes. They're just not, like, in my opinion, like, I wouldn't wear them because, like, I never went to those schools. Like, the Michigan ones are hard, but they're more of, like, I feel like these are, like, you know, decorative pieces. Like, you put this thing in your trophy cabinet, or you put this on your desk, you know what I mean? You're not actually, like, wearing these anymore because they have that much value. So, for me, they're just iconic, and I'm probably going to move them up. I think the Illinois colorways are always better. There's the other reverse one is also good in the Purdue. So I'm going to put this somewhere here. We got a God tier shoe. We got the Adidas West Germans. For me, I actually got a pair of these, and I wore them with a blown out toe because they were so rare. I'm not kidding, guys. The West Germans were like the first shoe before combat speeds, and they were like, I guess they are technically combat speeds, but these are from like the late 80s, and then from here on, this is where, you know, late 80s to the 2000s is when Adidas just conquered with the wrestling shoes. Like, honestly, Asics kind of had that mark, and these were like their competitive aspects from the Onitsuka Tigers. These things were just lightweight. They had 2 split sole grips. They weren't like the best of all grips, but like they just worked so well, and these were iconic, especially in Europe. So many Russians were wearing this. So many guys in just Europe were wearing these. A lot of the European countries were all in Adidas, and it was, oh my gosh, man. Like, I freaked out. I remember getting these West Germans. They were just so rare. They cost me so much money for my mom and dad. I think I got it for my birthday one year. So this is my first God tier shoe, the West Germans. All right, here are the Adizero Sydneys. I think these are the Sydneys, but they're teal. This is when I think they started dropping off. I actually had these pair, and I think my buddy sold them. Ashton Mutuwas. He's a big shoe guy. Check out his page, Nigel Souls. He was selling these teal Sydneys for me for a minute. I think he ended up selling them for me. They've gone up in price for sure. They just aren't. I don't know. It's that colorway is so iconic for Adidas. And we'll get into it when we reach to the shoe. But overall, this shoe for me is probably just solid, or I'll give it a mid, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of that. We got some more Adidas, guys. We got the Adidas Super Slays. I thought these things were awesome back in the day. I definitely got to give these things fire because these things are super rare, borderline iconic, but they just weren't around for like that long of a time. So in my opinion, they just fall a little bit short there. These are the Adidas. I think these are the Sydney EQTs. This is where Adidas started the model of making like more of like a techie type shoe with like a zip in the front, and they nailed it. They had the whole zip with a fold, and that's kind of where like those responses that I was talking about earlier like were based off of. But like for me, the Sydney EQTs were just insane. Like, I love these things. Like, for me, this is iconic. These are amazing shoes. You saw so many high-level wrestlers wrestling back in the day on the wrestling mats, going to the Olympic Games and stuff. And this is when Adidas was peak, man. I'm telling you, we got tons of good Adidas shoes in here. For me, we're gonna move this above the colleges. All right, here we got the Grappler's responses, I think, the G response from Adidas. I really didn't like in this shoe for me. Like, I know these were, like, really rare and sought after. I didn't like how, like, the Adidas is, like, spaced off like that. They just look, like, super clunky and, like, heavy, too. And I, like, always liked a really light shoe. So, for me, these probably go down to solid. I mean, like, maybe you could put them in the fire tier. I just was never a fan of them, and I never wore them, but you could definitely move those up. Like, if I was like a shoe freak, like a guy who was like sought, like, people are gonna put this in like iconic or god tier, whatever. So I'll give it like at the end of fire, but they just aren't my cup of tea, to be honest with you. But I recognize recognize is real, all right. So don't hate me on putting them so low. All right, these are Cage Fighter shoes, dude. Oh my gosh, I remember when Cage Fighter tried wrestling shoes. These are going immediately in the water, those, dude. These things were straight up ugly as sin. Honestly, Cage Fighter, they made these things, they dropped them, and they dipped out because nobody bought it, really. Nobody ate it up. And I didn't really know what they were marketing for. Maybe for, like, jiu-jitsu, like, MMA guys that were trying to wrestle, too. But these things were just total ass, straight up. All right, guys, so I got two shoes here. We got the Colats, the Nike Carry Colats, bro. First off, these are probably the coolest and the best Nike shoe that ever released, in my opinion. There's a black pair, and then there was like a blue pair, and then on top of it there's also an Illinois pair, which the Illinois pair is just like extremely rare. I remember we have a guy at our he runs our kids club, and when he first came in, and when I was probably like in college, I look at it and I'm like, bro, he has the Illinois Colats on, bro, what are you doing with this? Like, oh, I wrestled in Illinois, we got these, this was our gift. And I was like, dude, take those off your feet, put those in the box, save those forever, cherish that. Don't let those things touch Matt anymore, because you have no idea what those things are worth. Those things are worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But in my opinion, the blue ones are my favorite. So I got all three of them down here in a row. So I'm going to probably, for me, I'm going to put them, I'm just going to move one up here, and we're going to move past that. But in my opinion, the Colats, all of them, god tier. Why? They're super sharp. They're extremely hard to come by now. They just look great on foot. And I'm not really too sure because I never owned a pair, but I really always wanted that shark blue color. My gosh, they just like shine. So overall, for me, right now, the Colats are at the top. These are Adidas' version of like Asics Matte Flexes. So these are just like low end. Like honestly, this is when Adidas started making some garbage, and I'm gonna put this straight in trash right at the end, because these were not great shoes. We're at another god tier shoe, and I'll explain why. I know I covered the Asics EXOs or the EXOs, the original like colors and all of them, but this colorway specific, in my opinion, is god tier. This is the Russian colorway, okay? For those of you who don't know and have not seen this shoe, this blue with like that like reddish pink color and the white laces, bro, if you saw this shoe and you saw how many freaking Russians wore this shoe, like, this shoe is the reason why the other ones blew up, because everyone was wearing this. This is what Saidulayev, this is what Sidakov's wearing, this is what Sabalov was wearing, this is what Ugliev was wearing, this is what, like, every good wrestler that you've seen wrestle and win for Russia, when they just dominated everybody in like the teens, like 2012 all the way until 2020. This is what the colorway, and this is what they still are wearing. I mean, this shoe is like what made them, like, this drew all the attention. And, you know, obviously the EXOs are a Japanese shoe, but this is like the Russian colorway. And so, like, this thing just set up Asics in a way. Like, this shoe just marks another list. So for me, this colorway alone just moves up to god tier. I don't know where to put it, to be honest with you. I'm going to put it up here. It's really hard to rank these god tier shoes. So I'm going to do that for now. We got the P2s, the Asics P2s. These things are awesome. These things are grails, and they're definitely iconic shoes. I think like the little swoosh up the side, the long little like dashes going up the high ankle that are thick and comfy. I think people wore them for the comfort, and that they were just like hard to come by and rare at this point. There's a yellow and blue colorway that are really cool. I think there's a red one as well. And my friend actually, like Ashton, who I was telling you about, he actually found these on Facebook Marketplace, brand new in box. Someone was selling for $25. He ended up flipping it and selling it for $500. So that's how much these things are worth. And for me, I think these are iconic for sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna talk about one of the most iconic shoes of all time, and those are the Rulon, the Asics Rulon Gardeners. These things are crazy. If you've seen them before, if you don't know much, the inside of the shoe like goes up to the side, like the grip goes like for the inside. It's supposed to be like basically a Greco-Roman shoe, so you have extra grip support on the side of your shoes when you're driving and pummeling. And man, these things sold like crazy. So many people love them. I never really wore the Rulons because they were a little heavy for me, but like it doesn't matter because these shoes were just excellent. They had the black with the yellow. which many Iowa wrestlers were wearing. We had the black with the red. Those were popular. There's also a black with blue on the side and with silver. And I mean, these things alone drove ASICS into greatness, especially in the American market. And that's how the aggressors, which I think we'll go to next, were based off of. So for me, the Rulons are close to God tier as it can be. But I'm going to put it the number one iconic shoe because it set the tone, right? And now Aggressors was just kind of like the remake where they started remaking Aggressor 2s, 3s, 4s, different colorways, yada, yada, yada. There's a Sissy Aggressor here as well, which is like kind of the basic off that teal. But I'm going to put the Aggressors and just the regular Aggressors are just going to go in fire for me. It's hard to remake a classic, if you know what I mean. But so many people still can wear it and it holds up the same. We're going to get into the 54s, the ASIC 54s. Here, these are the shoes that set the tone for the Rulons, all right? They weren't as good, but I thought they looked really cool. I like the white with the blue a lot because it kind of looked like an astronaut shoe, and it just was a little more subtle. It just was kind of like, it almost was like a prototype with the strap across it, and they just, Rulons was like chef's kiss. This one was just like the prototype, like the dinosaur beforehand that had a little bit of extra, a little futuristic touch to it. And there was a black and yellow colorway and a gray and blue. For me, these are going in these are also going in iconic, but like a little lower. So I'm gonna put these back here behind the Jordans. The Adidas Addy Stars, man, these things were awesome too. They got a little. This is where the Velcro strap was across. There were these breathable holes in the bottom, and they were like super awesome to wrestling. Just the strap over the top ripped up a lot. For me, these could be iconic, but I'm gonna put them at the top of fire because I thought these things were also a trendsetter. This was like when Adidas was in their peak shoe, and they definitely had better shoes going forward. And I think the Sydney EQTs, which were like the model before these, were still better. But the Addy Stars were amazing. I just love the black and blue color with the white fully on. So for me, these go in the highest of fire. The Nike Hyper Sweep. These are like the tech shoes for Nike. They're like the shoe that, kind of moved on. Some people like these, but for me, I tried them. They were too skinny on my feet. The rubber going around them, it was just too slippery. And it's like they tried too hard to like model like the soccer football cleat type thing, where it was like narrow, sleek, like high tech. But they just missed details. Like the laces go down sideways. For me, they're ugly too. I don't think they look really that good on foot either. They're just like really too slim. Like they just look like they're like literally suffocating your foot. And for me, they go in trash. Honestly, like I cannot stand these. These Adidas shoes, I don't even know what these are. These are like Varners, a type of Adidas Varners. This is when Adidas really like in the 2010s started kind of getting bad. These are functional shoes for sure. They're just really, they look stiff. The materials are too synthetic, I think. And I'm going to put this in mid. Adidas Nitros, these are amazing shoes. Gonna put this in fire. I think Adidas just had so many shoes that they're really running the fire category at the moment. All right, we got Nike. We got the Nike Tawas. This is another shoe that was kind of big around. This is the shoe that Nike released kind of around the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and they kind of built off it in the different colorways and stuff. For me, I'm gonna give this a solid. I think the Nike Tawas are solid. They're not anything great. I don't think they're like the Freaks or the Inflicts, but they're definitely good shoes. The International Lights. All right, these things are awesome. These things are iconic. They've remade this a couple times, and I think they did just a good job on the remake as the original ones. They've been a little sturdier. These things are made for comfort and quality. So these things they're very soft. They feel like a sock, but with a little bit of a cushion around the ankles, a little thicker than the EXEOs. For me, these things are top fire. Some people might give these things iconic tier. For me, I'm gonna put this in the number one as fire at the moment. Actually, even above the Addy Strikes. Bro, the Kale, the original Kale V 1.0. Bro, when people have these things, I thought these were amazing shoes. They had just the red, white, and blue with the kind of the clearish clear bottoms, and then like the foldable strap over the top. Bro, these are iconic. Straight up, these are iconic. The Kales, and then they really paved the way for going Kale, the new V models going forward. Since we're here, we'll just talk about the rest of the Kales. I think the V3.0s, these were mid shoes. In my opinion, they had some horrible colorways. I might put them in trash because of just like the color they made, but I don't think they did a good job. But then they revamped it up with the 4.0 and the 5.0 here. These Kales, man, these were so comfortable, and then these set the way. So I think that these Kale, the black colorway, the blue, it kind of had like the inside-out look to it, the way the material was made. So I'm going to put these things at fire, somewhere in the middle. We got the Dan Gable Ultimates. The colorways were cool for these shoes, but I'm not sure where they held up. I'm going to put these in solid. All right, next up, we got what are those? The ugliest shoe alive. These are the Brute John Smith. This is like when John Smith went from Brute, went to Adidas, and then he had a bunch of great shoes, and then Brute kind of tried to last stand when he was done with the contract of Adidas, and they pretty much gave him trash to be put out with, and these things are ugly, man. These things might be the ugliest shoes I've ever seen. The strap across it, I mean, sometimes the ugly appeal might help for people to think these are fire or something, but these are bad. I mean, these might be worse than the Cage Fighters, to be honest with you. Next, we've got the shoe that I've been talking about, and these things these are in God tier. These are the Combat Speed Teals. This colorway set the tone with Adidas as the Combat Speeds. This color is like, it's more than just iconic in wrestling. It reaches out to the face of wrestling. I mean, everyone who thinks of wrestling back in the 2000s wanted these teals, and they were so hard to come by. The best wrestlers were wearing them overseas, and not just that, in America, when they started filtering, these things just went nuts and people went ballistic for them. So I could give these things, I personally think they're God tier. Like, you know, them and the West Germans are kind of up there alone. I'm going to pair those together. I know I've got a lot of Adidas shoes in here, but I just think a lot of these colorways, like, these are where a lot of the grails are, and I have to bring them up. I have to mention them. Same with these black and red colors. These are the same pairs that I had when I won Fargo when I was in freshman year, and I mean, they're amazing shoes. I'm going to give these, I could put these things in God tier as well. Put them just in iconic with the black and red because they're so common, and then they kind of modeled off of that over and over again. The new Asics EXEOs that I've been talking so much about, the next generation after the EXOs went to the EXEOs, and they have a little more grip support. They've just kind of done it a little better. They're a little bit, you know, they're still in Japan, and they're definitely better than like what the Americans are doing with the Dan Gable series and whatnot, but because you got to get these from Japan, and so I'm gonna put these things in fire because they're new. They don't have the iconic status yet, but for me, they're up there just because they are pretty much the best shoe on the market for the most part, except these ONEV shoes. All right, a few more shoes left to go. It's a long one, but the next one we've got are the P1s. These things are the ones before the P2s. I think that these things are, in my opinion, even cooler than the P1s. Some might disagree, but I'm putting these things up pretty high, a little bit behind the Rulons. But I like them even more than the Rulons, I think. But I just know for iconic reasons, Rulons up. The John Smith Matte Wizards, these things are amazing. The white with the gold, there's also a black and gold, and there's also a white with like a green. Those things like killed it. I think these were John Smith's best shoe, the Matte Wizards. So I have to put those in fire. They're pretty close to iconic too. They just weren't like super high. And this is something maybe, you know, you could even put it at toward the back end of iconic. So I might do that because they're awesome. That was a peak John Smith shoe. The Henry Cejudo Adidas after the Olympics. I mean, they didn't do great on these in my opinion. I would say these are probably mid. I've seen some people wear them. They're just not great. So I'm gonna put this in mid, somewhere back around here. Inflict, the Nike Inflict, guys. This is a staple wrestling shoe, and this is like the one that they've been recreating. They brought this thing back after the 2000s to the teen era with different colors, a lot of different colors. It's a great shoe. It's just not anything special. You can put it on and it fits well. You can ready to go. I think it's like a 7 out of 10 shoe in general. The older models are better, but I'll give this thing solid for sure. I will probably rank it behind the Freak. This is a God tier shoe in my opinion. The Nike Hypersweeps Olympic Color Edition. These things are just straight up cold. The red, white, and blue is awesome for USA or any country that really has red, white, and blue in them or just kind of want to wear a shoe. I think these are amazing. With the two swooshes, the one on the upper and then a tiny little white one on the bottom. For me, these go up here. If you had these things, if you still have them, hats off, man. Now we've got a couple shoes left. We got the Brutes. These are the John Smith actual signature Brutes, which I think these are iconic because this was like the shoes that he was wearing. So I'm putting these things up pretty high. I think these, along with the purple and black, go up pretty high. Because they're Brute, they're not a normal, you're not your typical Adidas or Asics or Nike. Brute, for me, they go on iconic tier. Both colorways. This was like the best Brute ever made, and that was pretty much it after that. This was like the Jordan, like I said earlier, of wrestling shoes. The Kendall Crosses, okay? The Adidas Kendall Crosses, these are fire. You could even put these in, if we're putting the John Smith Matte Wizards, then I'm going to put the Kendall Crosses up here too, with the big lettered, or the big space stripes. I think look really cool with the gum bottoms especially. That's just like a cool colorway that they played with, and they really built around that Kendall Cross shoe. We've got the original Inflict with just the small check and the thick material. For me, these are fire, the originals, and they might go to number 1. Honestly, I really like the Nike original Inflicts versus the other one, so I'm gonna put that in fire. But now to round off the spot for the last God tier shoe, the OE Nike Inflicts, the blue with the gold. There is also the white or the red with the gold, the giant check mark with the gum bottoms. Man, these things are just classic. They're so hard to come after, and if you had them. I had a pair of replicas that I bought, try to mimic them. They ripped up really easily, and they weren't anything like it, but I always wished to have one of these things. So for me, these are even ahead of the foot sweeps, and probably ahead of somewhere here. All right, guys, so that concludes my list of shoes. I really think I knocked out everything. Let me know in the comments if I left any shoes out, if I forgot it. Comment your favorite wrestling shoe. I want to know. These are some world-class shoes I did, because world-class content and everything we do, baby. Let's go.